our guests who are with us, and we would want to seek their insights and expertise to know what this new Middle East is all about. Khalid Almina from what this new Middle East is all about. Khalid Almina from Saudi Arabia, Saudi journalist, former editor-in-chief of Arab News and Saudi Gazette. Welcome to the show, Khalid. Dr. Kamran Bukhari from Washington. He's a geopolitical analyst. National security and foreign policy of the Middle East, South Asia and Central Asia happen to be his area of expertise. Dr. Kamran, thank you very much. And we are also joined by Kathleen Dornbos from Washington, who's a New York Post foreign policy and national security reporter and has incredibly direct access to Donald Trump. All three very welcome to this Redline Global Special. Khalid Almina, if I could start from you, tell us, is there a new Middle East? If there is, what is it?
Well, there is, first of all, the term Middle East is a colonial settler term. It should be called the Arab world. There was the Middle East, the Far East, Sito, Centro, and all that jargon that has been used. I think, yes, there is. Over the period of years, the deliberate attacks, the breaking of the state structure, the whole strata of society being moved, and one cannot also blame the West for it, and I'm not one of those who does that. But I think also it was the incompetence of many former Arab regimes, the revolutions that happened in the Arab world, the counter-revolutions, and the lack of a sustained economic development program in certain parts of the Arab world. As far as the Gulf states were concerned, the Gulf states were cushioned by, the abundance of wealth, and at the same time, they were a bit away from the main states that were being hit. Iraq was the closest. 2003, the unnecessary attack on Iraq by Bush, the murder of 1 million people or more. Then, of course, Syria, Libya, everything is now coming to light. The contrived incidents so that they would have an excuse to jump in. That is one. The other thing is, I don't think so. It is the Hamas-Israeli war. It is the Israeli extermination of any Palestinian aspiration for statehood. That is one. Secondly, the 70 or odd vetoes in the United Nations by America. So all these have contributed. Now, Iran is a bogeyman. I agree the Iranians have not been up to the promised standards of dealing with people. They have had many, and they've done a lot of, the shenanigans in the Middle East with proxy wars and all. But the attack again on Iran by these culprits, Netanyahu and Trump, was unnecessary because Trump and Netanyahu, but Trump talks to the Arab leaders.
So, Khalid Saab, what's your one-liner on this? Is it different from how it used to be, or is it a continuation of the same old problem culminating in different ways?
It will be very different because if they don't rise up now and create a new strategy, then they will wallow in self-pity, and it will continue on till the day we all go away.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to make sense of it before that happens. Dr. Kamran, whether it is the Middle East or the Arab world, what makes it fundamentally different from how it was, say, like a year or year and a half ago?
Thank you, Talat. Look, a year and a half ago, Iran was dominant. Its proxies were intact. Its ingress into the Arab world, to use Khalid's term, was all too obvious. And a year later, Iran is in a very weak position. All of this is taking place amid a bigger strategic evolution, not just in the region, but the world. The United States is retrenching from the Eastern Hemisphere, from the Eurasian landmass, and of course, Africa. Its focus will be on the Western Pacific and the Indo-Pacific, the maritime space. So what the United States is doing under this president is rolling out a new geostrategy based on the concept of burden sharing and burden shifting. In other words, allied and regional partners in each region will take the primary responsibility for security and stability of their respective areas, while the United States will be playing a secondary role. What does that mean in the Middle East? Well, it means that if you look at the region, you have Turkey as an emerging power, especially in the light of the weakening of Iran. You have Saudi Arabia as an emerging power, and you can already see the cooperation between the two in the context of Syria, in the context of the Palestinian issue, and now we see it in the context of the war in Iran. So this is a brave new world out there, and I think that this requires taking off the old lenses and finding new ones to essentially make sense of what's going on.
It's a beautiful term, brave new world. But when you unpack, even though it may be a pernicious colonial legacy, Khalid can reflect on it, and yourself as well, Dr. Kamran, later on, you are also opening up Pandora's box. So it's not just the Middle East that is being redefined. You also have the outside powers like the Americans withdrawing, but at the same time looking at Venezuela and posting social media posts saying, I want you. So Khalid, is this a good thing that the colonial hangover is fading away? But what comes later and after is open to question. Do you have an answer to this question? What comes now?
What comes now is, I think, for nations to stand up, to take a bold stand and redefine their own strategy, not depend on foreign powers for protection, not depend for aid. Countries are rich enough. The countries around us also have the visible means to do something. Pakistan is there. Then you have the other Asian countries, if you want to include Uzbekistan and all that. They're quite near. I mean, the flying time is 2-3 hours from here. So I think, yes, if we rise up to the occasion, yes. Otherwise, as I said before, we are going to wallow in self-pity, blame the colonials and all. But one root cause of concern remains the Palestinian issue. And I'm not harping again and again. It is the central key to peace in the Middle East. Israel's behavior, atrocious, murderous, bloody, has to be curtailed. But unfortunately, they control the decision makers both on Capitol Hill and the White House. So I don't know how that's going to happen. You need somebody like Bernie Sanders or somebody else who will say enough is enough. Not to join the Arab camp, but at least to call a spade a spade.
Well, to change the Middle East, you need a change in the U.S. But let me go to another part of the U.S. from where Kathleen Dornbos is joining us. Kathleen, thank you very much. A simple question. I understand that you stay within the bounds of your discipline, which is reporting and access to information. So my question deals directly with that. When Donald Trump looks at the Middle East, based on your interface with the president and your reporting, what is he looking at? Is it a region that he wants to abandon to other powers? Is he there to direct its new shape? What's your take on President Trump's outlook on the Middle East?
That is an excellent question, and not one that I think enough people are really asking domestically within the United States. I don't think that Donald Trump wants to abandon the Middle East. While there has been a lot of rhetoric out of the White House from other members of the administration about the U.S. pulling back and leaving the international world, I still think that Donald Trump has an interest in maintaining the U.S. presence and acting as some sort of peace presence within the Middle East. But still, I mean, maybe not to the extent of some of his predecessors. I still think he wants to pull back. But again, you're going to have to deal with some kind of a vacuum once that happens. And so I do think that in the future, there is already some talk of what could a new system for even just looking at the Strait of Hormuz, what could that look like? Should we get more international partners in to help with that so that it's not just, American military boots on the ground being some kind of an arbiter of freedom or whatever the type of jargon the Americans typically use?
That's a wonderful start to my next question, Dr. Kamran. So how do you look at the shapers and drivers of the new Middle East? Khalid thinks that states have to stand up and speak for themselves, but at the same time there is this expectation that U.S. should do something about Israel. Kathleen is saying that U.S. is not really abandoning Middle East; it's a different approach altogether. So are we looking at the mix of regional factors, extra-regional factors and global factors combining to shape the new Middle East?
Yeah, I think both Caitlin and Khalid are right in their own ways. Let me sort of pull this together, and if you allow me. Look, the last 70, 80 years can't be seen as the normal. The United States took upon this massive responsibility of playing, the net security provider for essentially the planet because of really atypical circumstances that it found itself in 1945 at the end of World War II. Europe and Asia were both devastated by war. 100 new countries emerged on the map of the world, and there was a rival superpower with its own political economic system competing with the United States. In those circumstances, the United States came up with a management system for the world, which includes institutions like the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, et cetera, everything that we've taken for granted for the last 70, 80 years. Now, that was not meant to be forever. And, especially after the end of the Cold War, multiple administrations, starting from Bush 41 onwards, have communicated to at least our European allies that, look, the appetite of the American people to support such massive undertaking, massive outlays, financial outlays, and this heavy lifting in military terms is not going to last. There will come a time when the United States will just not be in a position to continue to underwrite security in the world as it has. And therefore, you need to take up your share of the burden. This is an opportunity. I mean, for the longest time, the world has, complained. While it has, benefited and wanted America to take the lead, there's a paradox here. Yeah. People have also complained about America. So I think now is the chance. The United States is saying to regional players, well, this is your moment, step up